Hi, this is Dr. Stephanie Wautier, and I'm the host of Conversations with a Chiropractor. This is not a health how-to, but rather a conversation with some amazing people I've had the pleasure of being with on my journey of life. Think of it more like Tuesdays with Maury, a fireside chat, or chicken soup for the soul. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy this conversation with a chiropractor. Today on Conversations with a Chiropractor, I'm joined by Troy Graham.
Hello.
A local Marquette musician.
Yeah.
And Troy, I always love to ask the question of how people came to their profession. And you and I talked a little bit about what your dad did for a living and how that sort of spurred you to sort of make some conscious changes. Tell me about that.
Well, sure. So my dad was a single father and raised me by himself right here in Marquette, Michigan. And he was a member of the Plumbers Pipe Fitters Union for my whole life. When I was a kid, I noticed he was gone a lot and I had to be with babysitters a lot. There were many years where he made great money and was in prime physical shape. But as he got older, certain things with knees and back and shoulders stopped working as well as they used to through time. I mean, that's just to be expected in any manual labor profession. But when I saw him, the first time I saw him tear his rotator cuff, I was in like 7th grade and he did that at work. And I was like, nope. That's not my route. I have unbelievable amounts of respect for plumbers, pipe fitters, anybody who's in the builders union, the tin knockers, boiler makers, or steel workers, any of those people.
Yeah.
Because without those people, we don't, like these buildings we have don't exist, right? So somebody has to do that work. It's just, I wanted to make sure that I preserved my body because I've known since I was 4 years old that I was going to be a singer. And a songwriter. I did, because my dad, we were members of the St. Peter's Cathedral Church here in town, and he would bring me there, and he was in the choir, the adult choir, and I would just come along and kind of sing. And a lot of the grown-ups were like, he can carry a note at 4 years old. You should really keep him singing. And so I started doing children's choirs through the church and then at school, and I was like the only boy in choir for many, many years. And until I got to like late middle school, because it was like, no, not really sought out. I mean, boys did sports, girls did choir. That was the thing. And so I remember when I was like all the way through like almost even 8th grade, I was one of the only boys doing choir. But then when I got to high school, it was like, oh yeah, there's 20 or 30 of us in this class. And we got to go to Carnegie Hall, and I got to sing in Carnegie Hall in New York City twice with the Marquette, the chorale at the time there. And yeah, it was a great experience. But definitely growing up, I always knew I was going to be an artist of some sort. Like I was always painting or writing poetry or whatever, and painting my fingernails and just being a goof. Brought me a lot of joy, but it also brought me a lot of real mental therapy. I mean, I could deal with my emotions at such a vulnerable age with this art form that I knew how to do.
Which is like poetry, singing,
songwriting, guitar playing. Yeah.
You've written songs since you were young.
Yeah. So, I mean, I started off doing like parody songs, which means that I like take a pop song and then put my own words to it, kind of like Weird Al Yankovic does. Yeah. You know, because I was like just obsessed with Weird Al. Like he was like my hero. Like one of the first concerts I ever went to was the Escanaba State Fair. I saw Weird Al play there.
Oh my.
And I just freaked out. And my dad he was so funny. My dad went there kicking and screaming, just, oh, this is going to be so stupid. And by the end of the show, he was singing Yoda, you know, instead of Lola, Yoda. And so me and my dad, that was like one of our first real musical bonds was that. But I think a lot of my artistry came from my upbringing. I mean, like real early on, it was just me and my dad. We didn't even have a TV. So we would sit around the house and share a can of soup because that's all the money we had. We'd share a can of soup, and he had a little transistor radio, and we would listen to Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story on there. You remember that? And now you know the rest of the story. And we'd listen to that, and that was like my entertainment. And I'd go to school, and all these kids would be talking about computer games and video games and stuff. And I have no idea what you guys are talking about, man. I listened to Paul Harvey last night. I learned about this, how Monopoly became, because now I know the rest of the story. And those kids are like, what are you talking about?
So you're not very old.
I'm not, no.
Can I ask you what year you graduated from high school?
So I graduated from high school in 2004.
Okay. So we might even think, oh my gosh, this gentleman must be in his 60s or 70s.
Right.
I mean, like seriously, to have Paul Harvey as your entertainment and for you not to have gotten into the
Nintendo, Atari, because I'm older than you,
Yeah.
the Xbox.
I had friends that had Atari and stuff with asteroids, and I would go to their house and play. But it was always like my dad was well, first of all, we were very, very low income for a long time. And my dad really worked hard and saved his money and purchased our home. He didn't see a point in things like gaming systems because it was like, you can go outside and play outside.
Right.
And so like me and a couple of my close friends, we would be out in the wintertime, throw on the long johns, go out and play and be kids. And summer, the same thing. I always ride my bike everywhere. And the great thing about where we live in Marquette is you have that luxury as a parent where you can let your kids ride their bike or go out by themselves at like age 8 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about them getting kidnapped or anything like that, or any kind of bad crime happening to them. For the most part, I think that our community around here has really paid very close attention to the upkeep. I mean, if you look at our lake shores, they're beautiful. They're clean. Our water's clean.
Yeah.
The people in this community seem to genuinely care about each other. If somebody's on the side of the road and they're stuck in a snowbank, somebody else will pull off and shovel them out, stuff like that. So that's why I wanted to raise my daughter here and stay here. And part of me being a musician in the community is part of trying to create unity amongst everybody because there's too much division.
Yes.
There's way too much division in the world now, and I don't have any patience for it, to be honest with you. I'm like, why can't we all just get into a room together and figure out our differences and accept the differences, and that's fine, but like still coexist? And that's kind of my mission is now as a musician is I want to involve as many youth as I can, because when I was a kid, we had career day at school and they would be like, don't try to do music. It's not a realistic career.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I do for 90% of my living now is playing music. And there's so many kids. I mean, like we had spoken before, like your daughter performed at Art Week with me this year.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do with those kids is show them that this is a realistic thing where whether you get a degree in teaching music or whatever, being a musician is a lifetime career opportunity if you want it to be. As anything else, if you work hard enough at something, you can do it. Now, I didn't take the teaching route. I did teach music at Father Marquette for a short amount of time, but I was a gigging musician. I traveled all over the country. I did 200 shows a year for years, and my daughter grew up in the back of our minivan, going to these different towns and becoming cultured that way, meeting different people and being in different communities and doing different things. And what an education to be in a different town every night, meeting different people and having to learn how to be friendly and sociable with people that you've never met. But then also like tomorrow, we're going to see a new group of people in a different town. I can't put a value on that. It's invaluable. And how lucky me and my wife were to be able to have me be able to get bookings and make enough money to keep us on the road and put boots on my daughter's feet and food on the table and things like that. And that's what people don't understand is they get this idea in their head of, oh, I have to go do this and I have to adhere to society and I have to do it this way or else I'm going to be a failure.
Yeah.
And I try to be walking, talking proof of, well, you can, and that's fine. If you choose that way, that's fine.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I said, but at the same time, I'm 40 years old. I've played music for 20 years professionally and I don't have any debt.
That's amazing.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and Troy, I want to, probably you didn't know this and maybe my listeners don't know this, but when I was growing up, I played the piano first, then the flute. I always sang in church choir.
Nice.
I was a cantor in the Catholic Church.
And that's hard because there's a lot of competition in the Catholic churches.
And so I'm in high school and my senior year, I'm Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. And my parents were like, you will not do music. You will not.
They flat out just told you.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's not like they were helping me financially. We were pretty poor. I'm one of 5 kids.
Oh, wow.
So there was no money. We were going to just figure it out ourselves. But probably my dad more than my mom was like, music is a ridiculous choice of a career and you're not doing it. You need to figure out a way to make money and support yourself. So like this is so powerful even to me. And here I am. I'm a chiropractor. I'm a healthcare provider. But for my kids, I'm like, you do anything you want. The sky's the limit. Like, nothing will stop you. You follow your passion. I want to commend your father for saying to you, for giving you the wings that were strong enough and big enough to carry you to follow your dreams.
Yeah.
And you're proof that you can do it.
Well, and that's one thing, that I do have to really tip my hat to my dad on is he always made sure that if I wanted to sing, I was in that choir, or I was at that choir practice, or I was in that play. Because I was actually I went to college for a very, very short stint, but I was there and I was an acting major. So I've trained in acting and I've trained in ballet and things like that as well. So like there all the different art forms. And I just realized that rather than going in debt, I could make a few $100s a night playing my guitar at different places. And I was really fortunate because my dad was like, look, man, life is way too short to be unhappy.
Yeah.
It's way too short to be unhappy. You can work a job for financial stability and money will never be a problem.
Yeah.
But you won't be happy.
Yeah.
Because you're always working at that job to get this, to pay this bill. And then the more things you accumulate, the more bills you have. I mean, I'm a very simple person. I have very few things still to this day. I'm not a materialistic person. My favorite thing to do is to actually like recruit youth to play music with me and give them the opportunity to see firsthand, oh, I can do this. Like even with Art Week and your daughter playing with me, I paid all those kids to play the reason that I do that though is because I want them to realize, hey, you did this service with your instrument and you were good enough to be subcontracted by a professional. Right. And that's how it starts. That's how the brain starts working when you're an artist is, oh, I just made $50, which $50 is nothing. But at the same time, I did this playing these strings.
Which I was going to do anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of people, when it comes to self-care and all that stuff, a lot of people, they don't have self-care.
Yeah.
Because they're so concerned with this mortgage payment or this car payment or whatever, and I'm going to work myself to death, and you got to have financial stability. I'm not telling people that you can't, you can just be careless and whatever, but if you got medical and you got a good marriage and you got a healthy kids, then you're rich.
I love when we can talk about the fact that if you use the word success or the word abundance, that it doesn't have anything to do with money,
right?
That it doesn't have anything to do with your possessions. Is your soul fed? Are you following your passions in life? And like you just said, you have a goal. You want to do this exact specific thing with your music. You want to bring unity. I mean, what could be more profound and more soul satisfying at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think for me, with the division that we see so much now, it actually hurts to see that amongst people. I don't want that. The only thing that I know to do well is play a guitar and write a song. So I've written a lot of songs about hope and unity and trying to keep the masses together rather than apart. At the end of the day, we don't have a lot of time on this planet as it is. And when I'm here, I want to make sure that I love as much as I can, as many people as I can for who they are, and not pass judgment and just write songs about, hey, if you feel like you're alone, I felt like I was alone once too, and you're not.
Yeah.
Because we both felt that way, so we can relate.
Yeah.
So you're not actually alone.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And that's kind of like what I write a lot of my poetry books about and stuff is my whole goal with the message and everything is for people to feel less alone and more understood in their struggles, right? Because so many people don't feel understood and they don't feel. And that's when you can start going down the dark path of depression and stuff. I don't feel like anyone understands me in this world or cares. So you have to take care of yourself, but you also can volunteer. I've volunteered with the homeless shelter. Me and my wife were very involved with that. And before I met my wife, I did the pancake breakfasts at my church and all these things through Knights of Columbus. I'd go down and volunteer for them. Volunteer work is wonderful because a lot of times when you're doing volunteer work, it's for a charitable cause for people who are in hard financial positions or possibly homeless. They're not used to people being nice to them.
Yeah.
They're used to just people being like, you got to go. You got to get out of here. This is my space or whatever. You can't be here or whatever. So when they actually have somebody be kind to them, they're kind of like, so you're not going to tell me to leave? And I'm like, no, here's some food. Go have a nice seat over there in this air-conditioned building or whatever. So, yeah, I'm very much interested in loving and people coexisting.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to ask you how you met your wife.
Oh, boy. So I was in a bluegrass band for 10 years called Sparrow Tree, and we played all over the United States. And we were doing a show at this little brewery in Minocqua, Wisconsin. Minocqua in the summertime is a big tourist community, and there's quite a bit of money there. We were playing, and she walked in the door. And I was like, set break time. I saw her walk through the door, and she just immediately just leveled me with her eyes. And she was kind of like one of those women who just could bring angels to their knees with her smile. You know what I mean? And it's just, but immediate, just because my band had just gotten off of taking a break. and we played 2 songs of our 3rd set. And I was like, hey guys, you're going to have to play a couple songs as a trio here because there's a blonde over there and I don't know how long she's going to be here, but I got to go. I got to step to that because she is gorgeous. And they were like, yeah, man, go do your thing. And so I went over there and and they played a couple songs without me. My name is Troy Graham. I'm in the band. I'm going to go finish my set. I hope you're still here when I'm done. If you're not, here's my number. And she had her daughter, who became my daughter. She had to leave, but then she contacted me. We started texting, and one thing led to the next. We did a year of long distance until finally neither of us could stand it anymore. And then she was just like, all right, well, we're moving there. And so she came here with her daughter and her 2 cats and moved into our house. And I told her from the get-go, I said, hey, I'm a songwriter. That's what I do. I'll never have a lot of money, but we can always have love. And I actually have a song called My Last Name where the chorus to it is, I don't have much to give you, but my last name and the words I love you. That's the chorus. Because it's just me being as honest as I can. Like, we're never going to have a lot of stuff because I play 6 strings on a piece of wood for a living, right? But we'll have our companionship and our love. And that was enough for her, which I was grateful for. And my wife, I mean, just like the amount of work she's done to help my career. She does all the bookings, all the emails, all the internet stuff that I don't know how to do. She takes care of that. Setting up sound systems and just the hours and time she's put into it too is just insane. Me being on the road and paying the bills with music for all the years kind of rubbed off on my daughter. She came home in 5th grade and was like, Dad, I want to play the cello. And I was like, yes, you do. You do not want to play basketball. That's what you do. Good for you. Because no disrespect to anybody who plays sports. It's great, but that wasn't her thing. And she realized that early on. And me being a musician, I was a 3-time state tennis champion in high school. I was an athlete too, but I destroyed my knees playing sports. I'll have a lot more time to play music than I would to play tennis or any organized sport. Because I think for the physical activity, for the cardio activity, for the mental and physical well-being, I think sports are great. But I also think that our school systems and our art community need to pay attention to the talent that's in this area in the arts.
Yeah.
Because whether anyone wants to admit it or not, in the Upper Peninsula, not just Marquette, arts are gigantic. Okay?
Yeah.
So Marquette is heavily reliant as a community on tourism.
Mm-hmm.
Heavily reliant on that.
Yeah.
Well, and if somebody's not playing live music somewhere, you're going to probably sell a lot less beer or a lot less this or that or whatever. You know what I mean? If there's not good music coming from somewhere, or I like to incorporate lots of different kinds of art. So like I do concerts on the steps at the Peter White Library every year. And when I play a solo show over there, I have a girl usually paint on an easel, like what she's feeling while I'm playing.
No kidding.
And then they'll set up some of their art and be able to sell it. But there's not a whole lot of outlets for live painting. You know what I mean? But like when an artist does that, and it's my good friend Marty Achatz, he's the guy who runs the adult programming at the library.
Okay.
He live streams it all. So you also get live streamed painting. So it was a great like marketing tool for her and all that kind of stuff too, where I just want as many people who are artists to like, yes, art is huge. Art is gigantic in this community, but don't do it for free. Like you have to get paid for your talents. And that's a fight I've been fighting for years with most people at this point. They know I'm going to play for money. That's just the way it is. But I played a lot for free early on. And then I had to bridge that gap where people were used to me playing for free. And then I started asking for money. I tell people now, I say, no, like even if it's $25, ask for something. Like value your time at more than nothing because your time is worth more than nothing. Even when you're just starting out, don't take the day off work and show up somewhere and perform anything for totally free. You know what I mean? Unless it's, of course, I mean, if somebody's, hey, my relative has cancer, we're doing a benefit, of course I'll play that for free or something like that. Or if it's like a benefit concert for music in schools or things like that, I'll do those things pro bono, of course. But most of the time, if somebody asks me to play, they just ask, what does it cost?
Right. Absolutely. As they should. It's your profession. It's your job. And I'm so proud of you for connecting these dots for these kids. Althea went through the Marquette. There's one orchestra professor.
That's it. Yeah.
Who has all these kids from 5th grade
through
all the way through. And I don't think that maybe he has the time to give all of these kids individually or to give them some of this even like real life talk, like you're giving these kids and how you brought them into Art Week.
Yeah, well, and I've met, I'm just going to say his name. I've met Eric Marta a number of times. He's unbelievable, unbelievably talented guy, great teacher and all that stuff. And then before Althea had Eric Marta as a teacher, I believe she did this thing called fiddle club or strings club in 5th grade.
Yes.
And that was with Harry South.
So Sonia got started with the violin.
Yeah. And so Harry South used to give private lessons to Althea at our house. And so it was that one-on-one attention that she got from another guy who was a working musician, a guy who went to school, got his degree. And I believe, Harry, if you ever hear this, I believe your degree is in upright bass playing. But I know he definitely has a music education degree, at least, because he's the orchestra teacher at Ishpeming schools now.
Oh, Ishpeming?
I think. And so we're talking about some people in this community that Althea's gotten a chance to work with that are working professional people, like Eric Marta and Harry South, who Harry South has done teaching in schools, but he's also been in bands for years.
He's with Michael Wade, and they're doing like a 3.
They do the jazz brunch and all that. It was always interesting when her friends would come over for sleepovers. They'd be like, why does your dad get home at like 2 a.m? She's like, oh, he had to play a gig tonight at the Ordock or whatever. And they're like, what do you mean play a gig? And she's, oh, well, I need a new pair of winter boots. And he had to go play this gig. But they didn't know what a gig was. And she's, oh, he had to go play his guitar and sing songs for people to make this money. And it's that balance where a lot of people, when they first come up in the scene and they first get a little recognition and notoriety, a lot of times they get a little excited and a bit of a chip on their shoulder. And I always try to tell them, like, don't do that. Be careful, because these people who are coming to see you, they're paying your bills. So you need to be as personable and as kind and as nice. Not that they're mean, but just a little bit of attitude sometimes. And I'm just kind of, yeah, that's not really necessary because we're not rock stars.
Like distancing themselves from the audience.
Right. Well, and just kind of not real social, doing set breaks and go out back and whatever. And like anytime I play a show, I always try to make sure I'm accessible to the audience. If you want to come talk to me, fine. If you don't, then you don't. And that's totally cool. But it's kind of one of the tricks of the trade, as I call it, is people aren't just buying your musical ability. They're buying you as a person, right? You have to be a likable person, at least enough for people to be like, well, I wouldn't mind having a conversation with them. But if you walk into a room and you're all, I'm the greatest person ever in the world, that's not real attractive most of the time. And I've definitely mentored a lot of musicians throughout the years where I just say, stay humble. Stay humble. Because I've been on tour and I've met people who think they're the cat's meow. And they're good.
Yeah.
But they're not, like, people don't really talk to them because they don't make themselves accessible. They're not liked as much as they could be.
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where I don't know how a musician, unless you're like Taylor Swift type of famous, I don't know how any musician could ever get to the point where they're like, I'm not doing an autograph signing or I'm not doing a meet and greet. Where it's like, what? If somebody buys my CD or my album or my book, yeah, of course, I'll sign whatever you want. If that's what they want. I mean, if that's not what they want, great. But I just never, unless you're world famous and you literally can't sign everyone's autograph. Right. But if you're at a poetry reading and you have a book there and you sell 10 copies and everybody wants you to sign their book, well, then take the time. Don't just run out of there.
It's great advice, and it's probably why you've been successful and why you've been able to become like a lifetime musician where this is like what you do for your living. You're also a poet. You also have 8 poetry books. 6.
Yeah. So I worked with a publishing company for a while. I co-founded a poetry company when I was in my early 20s, and I did 3 books with them where we did collaborations, and it would be like 4 different poets each doing 30 pages in a book. Then I branched off from them and started doing my own stuff, and my first solo book was right during the pandemic, and it was called Freshwater Mermaids. And that one's actually just a print to order on Amazon, so anyone can get that anytime on Amazon.
Freshwater Mermaids.
Freshwater Mermaids. And the beginning story of that was I've also had a part-time job at the YMCA since I was 19. So I've been a lifeguard. I've done every job there you can possibly imagine. But the YMCA has been great because whenever I say I need time off to play music, they're all about it. And so I'm just like, what a great job. That's the job you hold on to, that are that flexible with time off. And so, yeah, when I was 19, I had this experience where I was swimming at McCarty's Cove Beach here in town, and I got sucked into an undertow. It was in October. That night, there was nobody there. Right. I used to struggle pretty severely with depression when I was a younger man. How I would get that depression out is I would swim. I'd go and swim it out, thinking I'd swim, and then I'd finally get out, be so exhausted that I'd have to go home and go to sleep and then tackle the day the next day when it came. But, you know, that particular year in October, the waves were really high, and I was like, I got to get it done. It was actually raining. It was a foolish decision to go out in that, but I did it, and I got sucked out into the lake, and then I got pulled under. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I'm going to die. Like, this is it. Like, I'm going to die. And then I got like violently spat out of this undertow, right? And I'm like coughing up like water, and these two women pulled me to shore. And I'm like, where did these women come from? And I looked back because they put me onto the shore, and I looked back and they were both mermaids. And they told me that their names were Yasmina and Cecilia, and that they were the princesses of the Great Lakes, and that Mother Superior was not allowed to claim me on that night because I still had work to do.
Wow.
And so then they disappeared into the lake, and I, to this day, were they really mermaids? I don't know. Were they angels? I don't know. But believe they were mermaids because you can see what you see, and it's hard to take that away from me because I was dead for sure. Like, I was under that water in the blackness of Lake Superior in October at night. Somehow these two women got me to shore.
Wow.
And so that's the first story of the whole book, of the Freshwater Mermaids book, is Freshwater Mermaids.
Anybody who doesn't know the power of Lake Superior, people drown in that lake every year.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's a tragedy. A young man just drowned in a small inland lake. Like, so
Up in Gwyn, right? Was that? Yeah, I saw that.
for
Terrible.
you to have these beings save you from death and say that you
Right.
have a purpose on earth.
That was pretty profound.
Oh,
Yeah, it was pretty okay.
wow.
And it was, and when your daughter played Art Week with me, we played Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
And the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, I mean, you want to talk about how murderous that lake can be. I mean, so unforgiving, so just deadly if you underestimate it for 1 second. And we have so many students that come from out of town that, we're going to go out to the lake, and it's, you guys got to know what you're doing. You got to know what you're doing because that lake will pull you out and you won't come back if you're not careful.
I had a podcast guest, Barb Alasimi, who talked about her grandfather and two of his friends being basically drowned in Lake Superior in very close to shore, and the devastation that created for the legacy of those families. In fact, I'm going to have to get the podcast episode, but it's spectacular that you were saved that night.
Yeah.
There's so many
Well,
people.
and it's under whatever circumstances it was, I don't know. Somehow I ended up back on shore. That's what it was because that's what I saw. So I wrote a story about that. And then there was this, so I wrote this book right in the middle of the pandemic when I couldn't leave my house and there was all this division in the world. And I started seeing people when you would go out in public and they'd wear these masks. And it was almost like you had this plague where they wouldn't want to be anywhere near you, 6 feet away.
Yes.
And I understand what medical professionals said and everything, but there's a way to do that without being rude
Yeah.
to somebody.
And hostile. There was so much hostility.
Right. And so I was, at that time, I was like, oh, well, I can't tolerate this. And so I remember there's a poem in Freshwater Mermaid called Steam Ghosts, because I used to look outside my window that I was in my house for months at a time, and there was this steam that was coming off the streets in late March, because it was cold, but there wasn't any cars going by for a long time. So the steam from the street, from the piping underneath the streets, would create this steam that would come from the cold, and it looked like ghosts running down the street.
Wow.
Stuff like that.
I'm really excited. I can go on Amazon and get this book,
Yeah.
Freshwater Mermaids.
And so that was just kind of like my therapy during that time, was writing this book, because I was like seeing all this division, but also I was like, oh man, this gives me a full outlet to just be a weirdo and write weird stuff. And so that's kind of what I did. And it was great. My wife formatted the whole thing through Amazon's formatting, and you can buy them to order. So I was able to buy 10 or 15 copies at a time, sell them. I just remember, though, there were people reaching out that I went to high school with that I hadn't spoken to in years that were like, you put out a book, I want it. So I'm like mailing this book all over the United States. And I think I ended up selling about 500 of them.
That's awesome.
Like at the everything said and done, whatever. But it was just a wild time in life. And also that's when my wife discovered live streaming.
Oh.
Because we figured out a way, we're like, oh man, this is like how we make our money. What are we going to do? Everything's locked down. So what I would do is I would play a lot of libraries. So I'm in the National Library Circuit. So like every library in America has adult activities, right? That they put on it for free to the general public. But they have funding to pay somebody to come in and be the performer for those. That's how I made a lot of my money throughout the years, is playing libraries and doing stuff like that. So I would contact libraries during the pandemic and I would say, hey, here's an idea. why don't we do a invite-only private Facebook concert where I'm playing and I stream it on your page, and only the people that you allow can come in and watch it, or put on your page, and anybody can, if you want to make it public, whatever.
Sure.
But I'll do that for $300. And so I'd be getting all these checks from all over America to do these live streams for these libraries, but I would have never been able to do that without my wife. And she was the one that just sat down and learned about all this stuff and got obsessed. And for a day, she was like, I'm going to sit here and learn how to do this. And by the end of the day, she's like, all right, come down, let's do a test. And she put her cell phone on a tripod and we did it.
Like you created a solution to a problem. Like you pivoted during a pandemic. And you asked the question, like, this is what I hope our kids do. When there doesn't seem to be an open door, maybe you knock, maybe you push the door open.
Right.
Maybe you ask the question that you were too shy to ask or to think about.
Right.
You were like, hey, what does this sound like? How does this sound?
Yeah.
That's inspirational.
I've always had when you kind of have to have the mindset when you're a working musician of, you can ask anything. The worst anyone can say is no.
Yeah.
The worst anybody can say is no. And I always tell like beginning musicians that are discouraged, man, I've tried to play all these places and nobody will give me the time of the day. And I say, for every 20 concerts that I send an email about, I get 2 yeses.
Wow.
I said, but I want you to think about how many breweries and libraries and coffee shops and whatever there are in America, right? So if I get 2 out of every 20, but I send 2,000 emails, that's 200 shows.
Yeah. You have to be tenacious to be a musician.
You have to, in a way, not really take no for an answer. A lot of places, we don't really have the budget to meet what you want. Okay, well, what do you have?
Yeah.
What
Right.
can we do? Or a lot of times, like if I wanted to go to a library and I wanted a certain amount of money that they didn't have, right? I would say, well, I'm also a published poet. So what I'll do is for that same price, no extra added cost, I'll show up at the beginning of the school day and I'll do a interactive writing workshop with all your students for their English classes for that day, and then a concert later at the night for the community for the same amount of money. So can you meet the price then if you get more work out of it? And they'd say, oh yeah, no problem. And so that's kind of what I started doing. And I made some of these schools too that I would go in and do these writing workshops in. I'll never forget it. The first school I ever did was Crystal Falls. I went up there and it was during the pandemic. And I have this exercise that I do. It's called 6-word poems, right? Where you have to write a poem only using 6 words, and you're supposed to say as much as you can, only using those 6 words. And, the example that I give is Ernest Hemingway, right? He did a 6-word poem that said, "For sale, baby shoes never worn." Now that says an awful lot in 6 words, right? I'll never forget, I had this 6th grade girl in 6th grade now, so young. And she was in my writing workshop, and I said, well, write these 6-word poems, and there's 30 kids in this class, and most of them are just whatever. This girl stands up, and she says, "Pretty eyes cry the most tears." And I'm just like, it just floored me because I had her stand up and read it again. And I tried to explain to the kids that were all like, I think they were 6th and 7th grade in that group. And I was like, do you people understand what this means? And they're all like, not really. And I'm like, okay, pretty eyes cry the most tears means that even the people who seem the most confident and who seem the most beautiful and seem to have the most in the world still have their problems. That's what that means. And it's just, some of the stuff that these people would say in the writing workshops, I did some in Garden City, Kansas too, where like the primary people that would show up to that were retired people that would show up and be talking about in their poems, their retirement life and how hard it was to not work and get up, and you have to find things to occupy your day with and
To have a purpose.
Right. I have to volunteer at the community garden, and then I have to go from there to volunteering here. And the money wasn't the problem for them. They had plenty of money from their pensions and stuff, but it was like they wanted to feel relevant still in the community. And it's just interesting to hear like a kid say that in the school. That's where their brain is and what they're dealing with. And then somebody who's retired is dealing with relevancy. But still, it's almost the same thing if you really think about it. People have scars, and even people who have worked their whole lives and finances are not a problem. They have their issues with relevancy and all that kind of stuff. So it's doing that and like working with humans on a very human level, where I always would tell the kids in those workshops at the schools, I'd say, this is a safe space. Like nothing you say here is taboo. And you do have to say it in front of your teachers because they're in the room. I said, let's get it out. I'm not your teachers.
Yeah.
This is not the same as your English class. This is a safe space to say whatever you want. And I had like, young girls talk about body complex issues where they were concerned about their physical appearance. I had boys talk about their depression and suicidal thoughts and things like that. And then I would have the teachers from these classes be like, we didn't know about our students. Like, we're gonna alert our guidance counselors and send some of these students there so that we can get to the bottom of this, because they were like, you are such a huge tool for the schools because you are this kind of one-off. Like, these kids open up to you because you're here and you opened up to them. You were vulnerable around them, so they were vulnerable around you. They don't do that with us because they see us every day. And now we know that this kid, and this kid are really struggling.
Yes.
And we can get them the help they need. And that's what it's all about. Like, artistry is not just, I'm talented, look at me. It's like, I have this set of skills and I need to use this set of skills to better humanity.
Troy, I'm blown away. I mean, like, I was excited to talk to you because you're this Marquette musician, and I'll be totally honest, I never expected the magnitude of your mission. Like, I am so impressed. I'm so impressed by you. I mean,
Thanks.
like, almost moved to tears because these kids, they do have this sort of structure, and I'm not saying anything. I have lots of respect for teachers, but we sometimes need someone that's outside that realm, that's outside that.
Who can still relate.
And I mean, the cool thing about you doing Art Week, and I mean, like, the joy on Sonia's face when she was like, when you were encouraging them and lifting them up and paying them, and like, that in and of itself is like a stepping stone of mentorship for these kids. Like,
Right.
What a beautiful thing that you are doing for this world.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's what I'm going to do until the day I die, because I think that that's kind of what it is, right? That's the circle of life. Like, we're here for a while, then we go. But while we're here, let's do something worthwhile.
Amen. Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because I wanted to give people a voice and I wanted people to be able to share their stories. And I'm so grateful for you being a guest today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been great.
I want you to tell our listeners where they can find you. We know on Amazon they can find your book.
Yep. I play all over the Upper Peninsula now. I've stayed around a lot more in the past couple of years because of personal issues and stuff like that. So I've been a lot, but I play down at the Rippling River Campground quite a bit. I'm there usually a couple times a month. I do a monthly gig at the Superior Culture Kombucha Bar on 3rd Street. That's a wonderful place, especially like I'm sorry, I'm going to give a pitch right now.
Yep.
If you are a young adult or even teenager in this area, there are non-alcoholic options there, and that is a community that you will be welcome into. In college kids who, if you don't know where you belong, or if you're confused, or you just want to coexist, but you feel people don't relate to you, go there. It's an artist community. There's a lot of people that go there that are artists. There's a lot of people that go there that are not artists, but I really think that place has to exist in our community because it's so welcoming of everybody, regardless of your background. It's just so welcoming, arms open and everything. Just keep at it. Anybody who hears this, if you're an artist, if you're working at something, even if you're not an artist, if you're doing something in life that's a frustrating thing. I mean, I couldn't imagine being a philosopher.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to generalize things, and like a lot of times humanity, things like that, it's not generalizable. You can't, it's just not. People are different. So how could you possibly generalize humanity and put it? But philosophers do. And economists, like, could you imagine their job right now? An economist's job? Just keep at it, keep trying to make a difference, but always keep that moral compass.
Yeah.
Make sure you're doing what's right. And not what's right according to you, what's right. There is a difference between what's right to you and what's actually right in the law of the lands and like what people agree with and disagree with. Like, morally, if somebody is a human being, they deserve the respect to be treated like a human being. And if somebody, like, I'm a Christian, right? That doesn't mean I can't coexist and have a great relationship with an atheist. You know what I mean? There's no reason I can't be friends with an atheist if I'm a Christian. And that's how I always look at it. I am not interested in division. I'm interested in unity, and I'm interested in this world existing long after I'm gone, because I want my daughter to have a good life, and I want my daughter's friends to have a good life, and I want my daughter's kids to have a good life and their kids and all that. But we can't do that without unity. There has to be compromise, there has to be unity, and there has to be love in this world.
Wow, Troy, what a beautiful place for us to wrap this up today.
Yeah.
In unity and in love, and just encouraging the community.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, like, or subscribe? You can find me on social media at wautierwellness.com, Dr. Stephanie Wautier on Instagram, or Wautier Wellness Chiropractic and Massage on Facebook. And I'm so curious where your next conversation will take you.